You're going to want to watch today's video because I'm going to show you an easy way to make interesting appliques. Hi, I'm Kim Jamieson-Hirst of Chatterbox Quilts, and today we're going to be making fun strip-pieced appliques like these little hearts here. So let me tell you how we're going to do that. First thing you're going to need to do is to dive into your fabric scraps and pull out a bunch of strip pieces, okay? I have all blue ones, but you can use whatever color you want. You can mix all your scraps up. I just wanted to make some blue stripped appliques, so that's why I have all these blue fabrics. So the next step, of course, is to sew them together so that we have a piece big enough to cut the applique shapes out. I'm using the AccuQuilt GO, and the hearts die that they have, it has 3 different sizes of hearts on it, 2-inch, 3-inch, and 4-inch hearts, and I'm going to be making the big one, the 4-inch heart. So because of the way I'm going to be cutting this fabric once the strips are all sewn together, I need to make sure I've got a piece big enough to cover the 4-inch heart. So in my case, it's probably about a 5 to 6-inch piece of fabric, and that's the width when I sew all the strips together. You certainly don't need to use a die like this. You can certainly cut your shapes out of the fabric once all the strips are put together. So let's go to the sewing machine next, and let's get these strips sewn together, and then I can show you how you make those appliques. Now that I'm at the sewing machine and ready to start stitching, I want to make a few adjustments on my sewing machine. First off, I want to make sure I'm using my 1/4-inch foot, which I am on this particular machine, and I also want to turn down my stitch length. So I'm using a 2 stitch length on here. You want these to be fairly tight little stitches. All right, so that's what I suggest you do before you start stitching. Then you're just going to start putting these little strips together, and some of them may be longer than others. That's perfectly fine because we're going to be cutting this down later on anyway. And I'm just going to turn up my speed just a bit. There. And if your 1/4-inch seam isn't perfect, no worries. All right, so there's my first 2 strips put together. You notice I'm putting a little ender on there before I start my next row, and I had started this one off with one as well. If you don't know what these are and what they're about, you can check the description below because I have a video explaining why it's really helpful to use these whenever you're stitching. All right, so here's our first set, as it were. I've got a few more to go, as you can see. So I'm just going to continue adding these strips on here with my 1/4-inch foot. And then when I am all done, I will tell you what the next step is. All right, that was my last strip to put on. Just cut my little leader off there. Okay, so this is what it looks like now. So I've got all these pieces together, but of course I haven't pressed any of them yet, so that's the next thing I need to do. So join me back at the cutting table and we'll do that and continue on. Here's my pieces all sewn together, and this is what's called a strata. So there's your new word for the day. So when you put a bunch of strips together to form a new piece of fabric, we call it a strata. Now, I have not pressed any of these seams though, and so before I continue on, I definitely need to do that. So I'm just going to spray them with my Easy Press here. Just doing this quickly because I want them all nice and flat before I do anything further with them. So I've got that all on there. Now I can flip it over and start pressing them all in one direction and press them all up to the top. All right, so take a little bit at a time. You could press them on the other side first if you wanted to. You could take it like this way and kind of give it a gentle press up like that, not putting any pressure on the iron, just to make sure that they're all heading in the right direction. That's probably not a bad idea. And usually I do press my seams as I stitch them, like I would have stitched the first 2 together and pressed them, and then stitch the next one on and pressed it. But for doing this type of piece, I don't need to do that necessarily. And let me just make sure these are going the right way. It would be kind of pointless to have them start going the wrong way now. So I'm just going to press them down now because we want those seams to be really nice and flat before we go to the next step. Nothing worse than seams sticking up all over the place, right? And if you're wondering about this easy press that I'm using, you can check in the description below and I'll have a link to it. It's a great tool. It's a staple in my studio for sure to get my seams nice and flat, okay? Just check on the back. There we go. That looks really good. Okay, so our fabric is now ready for the next step. It's so exciting. So let me just tell you what's going to happen next and show you what the result is. So this is the next step. I have something on the back of it. What do I have? Well, I have fusible web. So there's different brands of fusible web. I like to use Wonder Under. So you're just pressing that to the back side of your strata. Remember that word. All right, because these are going to make fusible web appliques, okay? So once we've got this on here, the next thing is you want to actually cut out your applique shapes. So I'm just going to move this out of the way. And as I mentioned earlier, I actually am using the AccuQuilt GO hearts die. So it looks like this, okay? And we're using the large heart only, the 4-inch one, okay, to get these, the look of these. So what I want to do, this is where a little bit of thinking comes in. It's been pretty easy so far, right? Now you have to do a little bit of thinking, all right? Now, I've got this strata and it's linear like this, right? So I could actually just put it on top of that heart, cut off a piece here, run it through, and get the heart being stripped this way. But that's too conventional. So let's do something a bit different. Let's do it on a diagonal. And that's how you get this look, is I actually cut it out on the diagonal of the fabric. So if I want to do that, keeping in mind that I only need to cover the 4-inch heart, all right? You do not need to cover all the way out, you know, past the heart shape really at all, but you do need to make sure that what I've got outlined here in silver, I just marked this with a silver Sharpie so I could see the cutting lines, that is all going to be covered by my fabric. So I am going to strategically place my fabric on here, making sure that it's covering all of that heart. And then I want to cut off the excess, all right? I do not want to waste the rest of this material because I really don't want those smaller hearts. So what I'm going to do is I'm just lifting up a bit to see where that ends. It's about there. You can't really feel through with the fusible web. Sometimes you can if you just had fabric, the edge there, but I'm going to cut it off just like this. And I'm going to waste a bit of fabric probably, but that's okay. It's better than being short and then you've wasted it all. So it's actually reaching the edge there, definitely reaching the edge of the top and at the bottom as well. So I think we are all good there, okay? So I'm gonna leave it like this. That's how I want it to cut. And then I need to just take my mat and put it over and run it through the machine. Now I know my mat doesn't look good, but it still cuts perfectly fine. It doesn't have to look pretty, it just has to work. Okay, so we're gonna take this through. And see what we get. Keep your fingers crossed. All right, so what I have is my nice 4-inch heart. So now I have actually 3 of them because I cut some before. And they all look a little bit different, so it depends on how I place that fabric, but they're all on a bit of a diagonal, right? So you can kind of have fun with that and change your fabric orientation to give different looks to your applique pieces. Now, what happens if you don't have an AccuQuilt GO and the heart die, okay? No big deal. You could just cut these out with your scissors. Again, you might want to consider how you want this to be on your finished applique. You know, do you want the fabric to be this way? Do you want it to be on an angle? What do you want? And you could actually trace your design on the back here. Cut it out. I'm doing a heart still. Cut it out and, you know, you'll have the same result, okay? So it works for any kind of applique. So when you've got all these appliques cut now, they are all ready to be put on any of your projects. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to share it with your quilting friends. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified the next time I release a new video. And before you go, I've got some additional videos on this same technique for you to watch that I'm sure you'll find helpful. Or aesthetic. Oh, we're not going to use that word. Anesthetic. Anesthetic, yes, right. Okay.